Hello everybody, my name is KK and today we are building a fully functional elevator. Easy tell. Are you tired of stairs?
We've done this before.
Oh, you're right. Are you tired of those foolish bounce web elevators leaving you guessing which floor you're on and taking a gamble on if you'll be hitting the ground really hard? Oh God,
I've never
that's
seen this
disgusting.
before.
I don't think we're supposed to see that part of his body not inside of the rest of his body.
Introducing the Televator! Before we get into this build, let's actually talk about it. The first thing you're going to notice, there are a bunch of links, but it is not as complicated as it looks. It is more tedious. And not only does this work as a fully functioning elevator to where you can decide which floor you want to go on, it's also very versatile. You can do it horizontally across the ground, or even in a non-linear fashion. If you want to set it up to go corner to corner or just anywhere random on the map, you can do it that way as well, without having to have a whole line of telepotties that take you to each different place. Instead, you'll just have a wall of buttons and one telepotty. And on top of all that, every single one of these telepotties is on the same channel. So it is leaving everything else open and you're only occupying one channel. So you can go 100 floors high, only one channel. Now for the build, you want to set up where you want your televator to be. Keep in mind this is going to use a volume, so you need to build around before you place the volume because the volume does stop you from building. Each floor needs to be at least 1.5 tall because the telepotties do not allow you to stack with only one floor gap between. I'm setting this one up too deep because I want to do a door. The door is completely optional, you don't have to do it, but I am going to still show it. So now that I got the basic design set up for how I want the elevator to be and where the buttons to be, we're going to start placing. Starting of course with the telepotty. I do like to turn on snap for this. The snapping is a little buggy, so I had to switch to the nap mode just to be able to get this to snap. Now I want to snap it right there. Now for the buttons, I am only going to do this example with 4 floors, so I do only need 3 buttons per floor. You can of course rotate them to actually put them on the wall. And now we need to just place a door in and a half wall just above that. Now we need to grab our volume. And again, I want to turn snapping on because I do like to have these snapped right into the center of the room. And then adjust your volume size to match the size of the room. And now that we have our setup for the first floor complete, we want to go ahead and start linking everything together. The first thing you're going to do is connect every single button to the telepotty. And into the link of those buttons, we want to have them activate. And for the settings of the telepotty, we want to actually have them not active. And for this one, I am going to bump this up to channel 5 simply because I do have other telepotties around the map. And we want to link the volume to the telepotty and to the door. For the link from the volume to the telepotty, we want on overlap begin to do nothing and on overlap end to deactivate. Now what this does is when you leave the volume, it just deactivates the telepotty. And for the link between the volume and the door, on overlap begin, we want to unlock, open, lock. And on overlap begin, we want it to do the opposite, which is unlock, close, lock. The only reason we want to have this door remain locked for when this is not in use is because if you are building a multiplayer world, you don't want the other player walking in here and messing with the other player trying to use the telepotty to go up and down. So that is all the scripting for the first floor. I am going to go ahead and build the next 3 up, and then we're going to duplicate this stuff. Here's an example of the volume being in the way when you're trying to build. It's really not that big of an issue if you do come across it. All you have to do is just relocate the volume out of the way, place what you're trying to build, replace the volume back into its right spot. So now we got all of our floors set up. And the reason we wanted to go ahead and link everything is because we were just going to duplicate it so that way all the links copy. And the reason we want this to happen is because from here on out, we want every button to connect to every telepotty, and we want every volume to connect to every telepotty and to every door. First thing we're going to copy is going to be the telepotty. The volume was in the way for the telepotty as well. And before I even move the volume back, I am going to go ahead and copy the doors and place them all in the correct spots. So you can see that every link has copied to every door that we have copied and to every telepotty that we have copied. And same thing with the links for the buttons. For the links coming from the volume up to the rest of the doors, we do want to hop in those, and we want to turn off every action in the overlap begin section because we don't want every single door opening when you enter into this volume on one floor. We are going to leave the overlap in to close and lock the door. So that way when you leave one volume, It just introduces redundancies to make sure every single door is closed and locked. As for the links with the telepotties, we are going to leave them exactly the same. We want every single one to be deactivated once you leave one volume. And for the links for the buttons, we actually want to go ahead and figure out which button is going to take you to which floor so we can map out what each of these links need to do. As for this setup, I am going to do left to right. This is going to be the second floor, the third floor, and the fourth floor. So if you look at these links, we've got first floor, second, third, and fourth. And that is how I'm going to talk about these. As for these links connected to the telepotty on the same floor the buttons are located, they are always going to say activate. Moving on to the second floor on this one, it is also going to say activate because this one is going to take you to the second floor. For the third and fourth floor of this button, we want to deactivate. Hopping into the second button, which is going to take us to the third floor, we want the second floor to deactivate. The third floor is going to say activate, and the fourth floor is going to be to deactivate. And same thing with the last button. We want the second floor to deactivate, the third floor to deactivate, and the fourth floor to stay activate. The reason we want these links to deactivate every telepotty that we're not trying to travel to is so that whenever you are traveling and you say, oh, I need to go to the second floor, you're like, oh wait, no, that's wrong. I actually need to go to the third floor. This will actually deactivate the second floor telepotty that you just activated by pressing this button and activate the third one instead. So this way you're not hitting multiple buttons and having multiple telepotties activated at the same time to where you're guessing which one you're actually going to be landing at. Again, redundancies. There are going to be quite a few redundancies in this build, but they are needed. So now that we have all the doors and telepotties and all of our buildings in place, we are going to copy the volume. And we're actually going to place this off to the side. And the reason we're doing this is so we can see the links a little more clearly because we do have to get in and edit them. So this volume is going to go up to the second floor. So what this one needs to do is on the second floor door, it needs to unlock, open, and lock. And on the first floor door, we need to change this one to have no behaviors on the overlap begin. So this way, when you're on the second floor in the second floor volume, it is only going to open the second floor door. But when you leave the volume, it is still going to lock and close every single other door. And again, the links on the telepotty are going to remain the same. Now let's get this one into place. And then again, we want to duplicate that volume. We're just going to place it off to the side. This one is linking us to the third floor. So we want to hop into the third floor link. We are going to unlock, open, lock. And again, the overlap end is going to stay the same on all of these. And since we copied the second floor volume, we want to make sure that all the behaviors here are going to be none. And then we're going to set this into place, and then we're going to duplicate it one more time for the fourth floor. So now that we have all of our volumes, doors, and telepotties set into place, all we have to do is get the buttons on each floor. Now this part is actually going to be pretty simple because you're pretty much just going to be reusing the same buttons with the same links. So for this first one, we know this button is connected to the first and second floor. So all we have to do is duplicate it, and we're going to set it in the place right here. So this way, when you hit this button on the second floor, you're only activating the second and first floor. For this one, we know it is first and third. So we're going to duplicate this. We're going to take it up to the third floor and put it in our first floor spot. So that way, when you hit this button on the third floor, it opens or it activates the telepotty for the third floor and the first floor. And for this one, this is first and fourth. We're going to duplicate it, take it all the way up to the fourth floor and place it in this spot right here. And before we move on to the buttons on the other three floors, we want to come back to the first floor and we're going to map these buttons to the door. And for each of these links, whenever they are pressed, we want it to unlock, open, and lock. And that is going to be the same thing for all three of these. And the reason we waited to do these links until after these buttons were copied is because these are the only links we don't want to be copied. Each floor is going to be mapped only to the door that it's located on. But to make each of these next few floors easier, we are going to go ahead and link this button to the door. And we're going to set it up in the same way. We want it to unlock, open, lock. So now when we copy this button, it is going to copy that link as well. And as for the links going forward, we know that this one already takes you down to the first floor. We are on the second floor, so this one needs to take us to the third floor. So we need to hop into this link, which we can just see the corner of here. We need to deactivate the telepotty on the first floor, and then we need to set it to activate the telepotty on the third floor. And for this one, again, we need to deactivate the first floor, but instead we're going to activate the fourth floor. So And again, we can do the same simple copy and paste. We know that this one is between the second and third floor. So we can bring this up here. This will be our button to take us down to the second floor from the third floor. We'll place it right there. And then we do still have this link connecting to the door. We're just gonna delete that. And then we're gonna copy the one that goes from second to fourth floor and put it up here. So that way it can take us from fourth to second floor. And again, that link to the door is there. Make sure to delete that. And now we're on the third floor, and then we actually have to craft our final button, but we are gonna go ahead and connect these up right there, and then make these say the same thing, which is unlock, open, lock. Then we wanna duplicate one of these, turn snap back on so we can keep them straight. So we are on the third floor. We know this first button takes us to the first floor. This one takes us to the second floor. And again, we are on the third floor, so we want this one to take us up to the fourth floor. Activate that. And we need to make sure that everything else is deactivated other than the third floor and the fourth floor. So now we're just gonna copy this last button, and we're gonna put it up here on the fourth floor. Make sure to deactivate this link to the door below it. Create links between the fourth floor buttons and the door. Make sure they all say the same thing, which is unlock, open, lock. Another reason we want these doors to always remain locked, even when they are open or closed, is because they remember the last position that the door has been open, and that is how they open when they are scripted. But if you have them unlocked, somebody can mess with them, and then you just kind of get them off and wonky and stuff, so it's just more of an OCD aesthetic. Now that everything has been linked and scripted, the last thing to do is to close all these doors and lock them. But honestly, locking from the beginning is not necessary, because whenever you have your guest on your map, the first time they enter into one of these and exit, every single one of them is going to lock. And leaving them unlocked right now still gives you access to them in design mode, because once they are locked, you can't even access them in design mode. But you do still want them all to be closed when you start. And now we are gonna hop into play mode and make sure our buttons are functioning correctly. This one should take us up to the top floor. They're in here, and once we exit, that door should shut. You can see that Telepotty was deactivated. Let's see what happens if we go down to the third floor. Everything seems to be working fine. This first floor again. And let's give the second floor a shot. And we are good to go. Now, something that's really cool about these volumes is once you teleport out of the volume, it triggers the overlap end. So as soon as you leave one floor, it actually goes ahead and deactivates every single one of them. Like I said, it is not that complicated. It just kind of looks like it is because of how redundant and tedious it is to link and script everything that you need to link and script. Again, the doors are not necessary. It is for aesthetics. It does help in a multiplayer world because it prevents other people from walking in and out of the volume whenever somebody else is trying to use the telepotty, or the televator, excuse me. And you can see how easy it is to follow everything when you're only doing 4 floors, but as soon as you double it, it gets insane, and if you double it again, it's just gonna get harder and harder to follow. There's definitely a lot of function to this build, and like I said, a lot of versatility. It doesn't have to be linear at all. This could be a great way to move around the map with one single portal or telepotty, and that way you're not utilizing every single one of your channels that you have available just to get around in a quicker pace. And that is going to be it for this one. If you learned anything new, consider subscribing. If you enjoyed the video, like it. If you have any questions about it, feel free to leave it in the comments below. Or if you have any ideas of how you could improve this build, you can leave those in the comments below as well. You can also follow me on Twitter at DJKK. I am trying to become a little more present on social media, and Twitter is just a great place to start. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for your continued support. Until next time, I'll see you.